And now, brothers, let's enjoy the final video of this convention. It focuses on the great privilege we have of preaching the good news and features the original song that we've all been practicing and that we're going to be singing together at the end of this program. Please enjoy.
Praise Jah for His light. Good news, His good news. Preach with all your might. Good news, Christ is born. The way, the truth, the life. He will reign for righteousness. Peace He will provide. Jesus is the way to endless life. Truth He will defend. His kingdom will not end. Good news, this good news, joy for all mankind. Praise Jah for His light. Good news, this good news, preach with all your might. Good news, Christ is born. The way, the truth, the life. Good news, this good news, joy for all mankind. Praise Jah for His light. Good news, this good news, preach with all your might. Good news, Christ is born. The way, the truth, the life.
Another angel there monitoring the preaching work, which is apparently what they do invisibly. We've just been watching the final song from this year's Declare the Good News convention. It's kind of a tradition at this point that when they have conventions, they need to have like a rousing song that's going to be put to like a montage. And it's the task of Jehovah's Witnesses to learn that song so that after watching the montage video, at the very end of the convention, they all sing it together. So that's basically what we've just been watching. Apologies if you found the video quite triggering. I did slightly clip it because I realize it's going to be awkward viewing for many of you, particularly those raised as Jehovah's Witnesses. Very evangelical, very televangelist, isn't it? Very gospel, the whole feel of the productions, particularly the music videos. And, you know, that's been the case now for a number of years. But there were a couple of things about this particular music video I just wanted to draw your attention to. They start off with this montage of archive footage of Jehovah's Witnesses going right back to the 1914 photodrama of creation, obviously written or hosted at least by Charles Taze Russell. And this kind of links in quite well with what I was saying earlier about how disingenuous the organization is regarding its history. It glorifies the history and gives this kind of rose-tinted portrayal without allowing Jehovah's Witnesses to actually examine what the organization was teaching back then. So, for example, in the photodrama of creation, you'll find all sorts of nonsense about the earth being 42,000 years old, about the earth once having rings around it that were inspired by this crackpot, essentially, called Isaac Vale. He believed that the flood was basically the collapsing of one of these rings. There was once a ring of water, and when that collapsed, it caused the deluge. So there's all sorts of nonsense. If you go to the Warwick headquarters and view their history exhibition, they actually show you slides from the photodrama. And as I point out in my documentary about the Warwick Bethel, thumbnail here, one of these slides even shows basically a racist teaching from the organization's past, that black people are the descendants of Ham, that the pigmentation of black people was somehow the product of a curse. The slide is right there at the headquarters. And it's a great example, I feel, of how Jehovah's Witnesses are just blindfolded regarding their history. They're not allowed to research properly into what their organization once taught. They're not allowed to research what was said about 1914 and about how 1914 was the very limit in terms of when Armageddon would come. Of course, that date came and went. So did 1925, another date pointed to in the organization's literature. But how are Jehovah's Witnesses supposed to know this if they're not given access to this material, which they could actually have? Because having spoken to former Bethelites, apparently Bethel elders do have access to this older material when they go on JW Library, when they go on Watchtower Online Library. So it is an active deceit that is going on. It is a deliberate decision to pull the wool over the eyes of Jehovah's Witnesses, and yet they have the gall to point to their history in this glorified, romantic way in the concluding song. And you also have this portrayal of angels kind of darting down to the earth, being sent out on missions to help the good news be preached, we assume. I just think it's worth going over this again. Again, this is a point I've made in past videos. But if you are watching this as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, think this through logically, please. So we're supposed to believe that Armageddon is being postponed until the good news has been preached sufficiently around the surface of the earth. Once enough people have heard the good news, that's when it will be time for Armageddon to come. Well, let's just think about this in terms of the coverage of the good news. What are your chances of hearing the good news if you're in North Korea? What are your chances of hearing the good news if you live in Iran? Or if you live in Afghanistan under the Taliban? Does it really make any difference what angels are doing if you live in one of those countries? I don't think it does. You could send a swarm of angels, and yet the statistical likelihood of people hearing the good news in those countries is so infinitesimal that realistically you're done for when Armageddon comes. If Armageddon were to be brought tomorrow, a disproportionate number of those who are dying would be coming from countries that are communist or countries that are Islamic. Let's just be honest about this. It's overwhelmingly, it seems, North and South America, Europe, Africa, parts of Asia that get to be in the paradise. Where you are born dictates your chances of survival at Armageddon. That's one of the main problems with this whole idea of the good news being spread all over the earth. And as to God holding off Armageddon until enough people have heard the message, it's worth reiterating, as I've said in previous videos, what about the ballooning of the global population? If God had brought Armageddon in 1914, when the last days supposedly began, the global population back then was 1.85 billion. In the year 2000, at the start of this century, the population was 6 billion, and now in 2024, the population is 8 billion. So the longer God waits, the more people are going to die, basically. The more billions of people there are on the planet to be slaughtered when Armageddon comes. None of this makes any logical sense.